Welcome to Cannabliss SPG 2025. Earlier this year, I traveled to Vienna, Austria. And later I traveled to Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., where I made presentations on what was taking place in the Caribbean. And I pointed out that by the end of this year, virtually all the English-speaking islands would have legalized medicinal cannabis. And what this has done, it has helped to set up what I would consider the only regional zone on the globe where there is this level of intensive medicinal cannabis legalization. Today, we welcome delegates from 11 countries, including Anguilla, Antigua and Bermuda, the Bahamas, Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, Jamaica, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Trinidad and Tobago. The Caribbean region is a region with, as I said, the highest density of legalization on the globe. I want to highlight certain special innovations and special features. The MCA had developed what we call infused product regulations. You may wonder, what is that? Well, we've seen now collaboration between one of our companies, Medicinal, with that of the St. Vincent Chocolate Company to produce chocolate with CBD and THC products infused. Clearly, we will see other forms of these developments. And as regulators, we'll be looking and monitoring this very closely, but you will see and maybe even be able to sample some of those products today.
Over 2 decades ago, in the hills of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you had massive eradication programs supported by the United States government and the previous administration, eradicating cannabis and causing disruptions to livelihoods among traditional cultivators. We have moved from that era to where we are now in this dispensation and in this period, where traditional cultivators are at the heart of the industry. They are now issued license free of cost to cultivate, and in my own constituency, in my home area of North Leeward, when you drive across the roadsides, you're seeing farms with traditional cultivators, just as you're seeing farms with farmers who are planting lettuce, tomatoes, cabbage, and dasheen. On the roadsides, medicinal cultivators will stop you, and the traditional cultivators will say how pleased they are that we have moved in the direction of facilitating the medicinal cannabis industry and the build out of the space where they themselves are a part of it. They have their license to operate. They are doing so freely. They are doing so with a conviction that they are supported. You see, before, they risk having to go to the Lasso Free Hills and in various valleys across St. Vincent and the Grenadines, risking their lives away from their families. And now they are a part of an industry that is growing, that is transforming science and putting them at the heart of and at the stage of the transformation that we're seeing in medicinal cannabis here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but also in the region. There will be a time in St. Vincent and the Grenadines where medical tourism will be at the forefront of our tourism industry.
We recognize the multifaceted nature of cannabis and marijuana. It is a religious plant. It's a sacrament. It is a medicinal plant. It is an agricultural product. It is a political plant, because very few plants have been so caught up in politics as marijuana. And it is a commercial plant that has made a tremendous amount of money for a tremendous amount of people for a tremendous amount of years. We are at that point in the history of the Caribbean, as my brother Minister Carlos said, when we can come out in the open and we can recognize to the north and the south and the east and the west that cannabis is not a stigmatized product. It is not a ghettoized product, but it is a medicinal plant of value with real potential to uplift the development of our respective nations. And that is an important transformation in the way in which we have perceived cannabis. But in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we're a little bit past that, because my brother Minister Sabotu piloted legislation in 2018, over 7 years ago now, to decriminalize the use of marijuana. And that legislation was a culmination of a multi-year process. So we didn't start in 2018, we started years before that, educating and consulting and talking to people about what cannabis in St. Vincent and the Grenadines would look like and what it would mean for the development of our country.
In April 2015, when Portia Simpson was Prime Minister in Jamaica, the CARICOM leaders met in Jamaica on our way to the Summit of the Americas in Panama City, in the Republic of Panama. And we asked Barack Obama, who was then president in the US, to drop by and talk to us. And in that closed-door meeting, we asked one another a lot of questions. And I asked Obama this. I said, when do you think that the United States federal government will begin to depenalize small quantities of marijuana and to allow the banking and financial system to be used for medical cannabis? I say, when you think the Congress will pass that and an American president will be bold enough? He said that he thinks that we will begin to see some changes by 2025. And by 2030, we will see those changes being made complete. Well, I think Obama was very ambitious and optimistic about his society in that regard. Well, I think they're going backward rather than forward on that matter. But then he said to me, he said, in the Caribbean, you should be putting yourself in a situation to take advantage of the size of the medical cannabis market and for recreational use in respect of small quantities. He said, because if you don't do it, just like how you buy Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's, you will buy McWeed from America.